Hello. Today we will be doing an overview of Achieve, with the course being AP Environmental Science. However, everything I will cover today is specific to the platform. So regardless of the book you are using, what we will discuss will apply to your course. All right, let's get started. So here we are looking at a typical Achieve course for AP Environmental Science. Just to start with some basic navigation, over on the left-hand side, this menu here is how you navigate through the different parts of your course. Where we are now currently is My Course, where you will find all of your course content here. Next, you have access to a resources page. Now, this is where you can go to find anything additional that may not have already been added into the course for your students, as well as your teaching resources. You'll then have a gradebook built into the platform here, followed by an ebook for your students. And then a reports page, which is a great way to monitor your students' performance and activity. Lastly, there is a people tab, which will just be a roster of your students. But today we'll start with My Course. So Achieve courses do come preloaded, as we're seeing here. So you will always have, a place to start off. So you can click on any of these folders here to view the contents within. It looks like we do have some reading activities, but then it breaks it down into specific modules. So we can open up these folders to find some more content. So again, we do have these ebook readings, but we also do have assessments here that come with each of your courses. Now these assessments are ready to go, so if you wanted to just assign them, you absolutely can. But it's great to be always to preview an assessment before assigning it. So if I click on this assessment, it'll open up and we can take a look at how this assessment currently is set up. So up towards the top, there are a total, it does give you the total number of questions on this assessment. If we scroll down, we'll then actually see all of these questions and we have the ability to preview them. So simply by clicking on the question, I can see the solution as well as the incorrect feedback students would receive if they get this question wrong. So I can preview all of that for each of these questions just by using these arrows up at the top. Now, another great thing about these assessments is they are also customizable. So you can add and remove questions from these. In order to do so, if you select a question with the checkbox on the left, these options will appear up at the top for you. So you can all have it removed. You also have this feature, copy to edit. So this will actually allow you to make a copy of this particular question and then allow you to make changes of it. So if you ever wanted to change the wording around of a question or maybe add some additional answers, you can just simply copy this and make your edits to those. Now, of course, there is a question bank tab available here up towards the top. This is where you can come to search for additional questions in this course and add them to this particular assessment. So you can either filter using the table of contents, or you can search for terms and topics at the top directly. And in addition, there are some alternate filter options here. So if you were looking for a specific question type, maybe we want free response, maybe we were looking for a certain level of difficulty. So it really allows you to apply lots of filters here to narrow down your search results and find the questions you want. Once you do find those questions, you can check the box to the left to add them to your assessment. The next tab we have is for custom questions. So this is where if you make a copy of a question, this is where you can find it. As you can see, I do have a number of copies here. So this is where they'll live. You also have the option to create new questions from here. Now we do have some more basic multiple choice options, but we can get into some more advanced question authoring, such as, free response, math equations, multiple select. So you can create all those questions from here. And again, they'll be stored underneath custom questions, so you can always add them to any of your assessments. The last tab in here is a responses tab. Now, each assessment will have this here in Achieve. But essentially it'll provide you a summary of your student scores from here. Now, if we scroll down, we actually can see all the individual student scores, as well as some additional information such as average attempts, whether they gave up, and how much time they spent on the activity. You can also get a breakdown of all the questions. So it will show you which questions your class performed the best on, based on how many were able to get it correct on the first try. And then again, some additional information such as average attempts, whether or not they gave up, and how long it took them to answer these questions. So that kind of breaks it down here. The last tab in here is for grading settings. So once you've looked over the assessment, everything looks good, you can come to this tab to pick one of these templates, which will determine how this assessment is going to be scored. So there are 5 templates in here by default that you can use. Click on the 3 dots to view the details of any of these templates. You also can make copies of them if you ever wanted to edit the template and make it your own. But of course, there is this option down here for custom templates. So if I click Create New, I can then customize my own personal template. If I want to apply time limits, randomize the order, allow for late submissions, I can set all of that up here and just save my changes up at the top. Right, now that we've taken a look at a particular assessment, it looks good to go. I'm going to go back to my course using this icon in the top left corner, and this will jump us back out. All right, so now we actually want to assign this assessment. If you look over to the right, you will see this little calendar icon. Now, if I click here, it will bring me to a resource details page. This is where you actually come to assign it. So you would check assign the students, enter your due dates, point values, and whether or not it'll be graded, ungraded, or extra credit. You also can edit the visibility. So by default, it should be invisible for the entirety of the course, just so students can always review their work. Beneath that, you have an option for student exceptions. So if you have any students that need time accommodations or just general exceptions, what you can do here is type in those student names or group of students, and then you will be able to apply or adjust the due date for them, just to allow them to have that extra time they might need in order to actually complete this assessment. Beneath that, there is an option for category and recommended use. This is determining the gradebook category this assignment would fall into here on Achieve. By default, you will only have one called assignments when you start, but you can create additional ones from Achieve's gradebook. And then recommended use is simply that, just a recommendation for when you want them to complete this. It can either be set to none, pre-class, in-class, or post-class. Lastly, you will be able to access the assessment grading settings again from this page. So there are 2 ways you can get to those, either by previewing the assessment, making through what we just went through, or coming to the resource details page here and finding it at the bottom. But if everything looks good, you just save your changes up at the top, and this would now be assigned to your students. Now that is assigning one assessment. In Achieve, you can bulk assign, and that's where these boxes to the left come into play. So if I wanted to assign, both of these assessments, I can then select them and come up to assign/edit here. Now from this page, I can still adjust this information individually for each of these assessments. But I also have these batch actions here. This will allow me to update all the information very quickly. So if I want them all to be worth 10 points, I can just do that very quickly here. Same idea for dates. I can change them to a single date, sequence assignments every week, no dates, shift days forward. So it's just a quick way for you to update all this information so you don't have to go through each individual assignment one by one. And then again, there is a tab here for the grading settings. It does show you which resources these would apply to, so you would just select the appropriate setting for these 2 resources. Okay. So now, if I come back up top and click on where it says course content, this will jump me back out to the folder view where I can see all the different units. Now, up towards the top here, there is this option, View and By. So there are actually 3 different ways we can view this page. And again, we're on the My Course page. The current view we're looking at it in is Course Content View. And this will show us the content in the folders that we're looking at. Now, if you want to switch the view, and this is something your students will be able to do as well, you just click on this drop-down menu here. Another way to view it is by assignments. Now, this might be maybe the view that students work with the most, simply because it does show them all of their assignments in the order that it's due. So they'll know what they have to complete this week, next week, and so on. Another way to view it is by resource type. Now, this might be more beneficial to you as a teacher, simply because it groups all your resources together. So if you're looking for all your assessments, they can be found here. Same idea for readings, links to the flashcards, some files, and some interactives like the Do the Math videos. These can all be found down here together, where you can make them available to your students or assign them. So that is our main course content page here. The next thing we're going to take a look at is the resources page. So as I mentioned earlier, this is where you can come to find any additional content that may not have already been added into your course. You can either search for content up in the top. So if you're looking for something specific, such as an animation, you can just type that in there and it will appear for you. It will pull up everything that is associated with that term. So we do have a number of animations here, such as this one on mutualism. These are essentially little videos that can kind of walk your students through these terms. Some additional things. You also can filter by the table of contents down here. So from here, you can access any kind of additional resources for your students, as well as your teaching resources. So you'll find the online assessments, those are things for your students, but then you'll have things like the PD videos, which are meant for you. There's also things such as lecture slides, handouts that you can use in class, and all of these are completely downloadable. So if I select these 2 filter options, it'll pull them both up. There's that overview PD video, and here are the lecture slides. So if I wanted to access these, simply clicking on it there will have it download to my computer. Some additional resources you might find in here are like the environmental science extras, which is simply just a list of curated resources that are found outside of this course. So just some additional stuff that may not be in this course, if you ever wanted to take a look at and add them in or use them with your students. We also have access from this page to our goal setting and reflection surveys. Now, these are new to Achieve, but essentially how these function is there will be a 5 surveys in total, starting with an intro survey. Now, this intro survey is going to ask your students to set a goal for themselves for this course, whether that is the letter grade they hope to achieve or a learning outcome. They can set that goal, and then they're going to put together a plan for themselves on how they are planning to achieve that goal. Then they'll have these checkpoint surveys that they can take throughout the course, maybe after a big test or paper or project, whatever it might be. But these checkpoint surveys are going to have your students reflect on the progress they've made so far, if they're on pace to hitting those goals, or if there's any challenges that they might be facing both in and out of the classroom that are preventing them from reaching those goals. So, the purpose of these is really to get students to put together a learning plan for themselves to kind of take more control of it. And these are them right here. You can add and use as many of these checkpoints as you would like, just to have your students reflect on their progress. Another resource you can find on this page is the teacher's edition of your ebook. Now, this is linked to an external URL. If I do click on it here, it will open up a new tab. Since our teacher's edition of the ebook is on our ebook reading app. In terms of navigation, you do have the table of contents over here, which might be the best way to navigate through the different parts of the book. You will also have all of your planning pages here as well at the beginning of each of these units, where you can get a nice breakdown of each modules as well as the resources that are available for them. Now, if I go into a specific module, you'll notice that you do have some additional resources and ideas for discussion starters or bell ringers available here. Now, we also do have the ability, here we go, to access resources from the ebook. So if you look over here on the margin on the right-hand side, this is a teaching resource material that is available over here in Achieve within these resources. However, these are actually directly linked in the ebook as well. So if you are going through the reading, it is nice to be able to just kind of access those resources directly from the book without having to jump back into Achieve and try to search for it there. So they are hyperlinked here for you. In addition, you do have the ability to leave notes and highlights in the ebook, and your students can do all of this as well. It's simply just clicking and dragging over the text like so, and it will pull up these little highlighters so you can select a color and then add notes for yourself, which will be stored in the margins. Up towards the top, you do have reader preferences. This will allow you to edit the display of the text. So if you need to zoom in and out, you can do that as well, and also adjust the height and width of the page. Now, there's also a tab for highlighters. So this is where you can come to actually customize those highlighters for your course. If you wanted to ever change these around, delete them, change the color or the name, you can absolutely do that, or create new additional ones. You also have the ability to set a highlighter to public. Now, when a highlighter is set to public, that means it can be shared. And that's where this sharing tab comes into play. So from here, you have a share link. So if you ever wanted to, annotate a part of the book for your students, for them to focus on, you can just set that highlighter public, copy this link, and then share that with your students. You also have the ability to follow students. So they can actually set these to public as well, and I will show that here in a little bit. But once they have those set to public, you'll be able to type in their emails directly to follow their shared notes and highlights. And students can do that with each other as well if they wanted to, share highlights and notes with their classmates for studying. They can absolutely do that. You'll then find a workbook up here at the top. This will store all of the notes and highlights you make here for you, so you can easily access them at any time. So if I wanted to go back to where I left this particular highlight, all I have to do is click on it. And as you can see, it jumped me directly there. There's also an option for bookmarks. So if I needed to bookmark this page quickly to save it, looks like it already was, I can just click that down here in the bottom left corner, and that will update automatically. Lastly, there's a tab for flashcards. Now, there are flashcard decks available here in Achieve, but this is an additional resource really for your students. So if they wanted to build their own decks, they can simply begin typing in the front and back material here, or they can just highlight a portion of the book and hit create flashcard and it'll update automatically. So while we are in the teacher's edition, some of the functionality I did share will apply to your students as well. And I will show you that later on once we do get to, actually to your student edition of the book. All right. So now that we have kind of gone through the resources and taken a look at your teacher's edition, we will touch on the gradebook briefly here. So from here, this is where you can monitor all your students' grades. You'll have their scores underneath the corresponding assignments. If you click on a student score, you will have the ability to adjust the point value if you needed to. You also can provide some notes to your students here as well. The big thing, though, would be the gradebook settings, as this is where you can come to create any additional gradebook categories. So you can just type in plus add category, start typing in the name, and then determine if you're going to use this drop lowest grade feature. You also can edit the grade display. It can be a whole number or up to 2 decimal places. And then you can also determine when grades will be reported to the gradebook. So this first option down here simply is grades will be reported prior to the due date, which means once students complete the assessment, they can actually go and take a look at their grades. Second option is report grades after the due date has passed. Now this means once that due date hits, everyone will be able to see their grades. So this kind of eliminates the potential of, one student finishing early, seeing solutions, and maybe sharing them with his classmates. The last bit down here is to require a student ID. Now this will appear next to your student's name and be displayed in the gradebook. This is completely optional if you want to have this on. It's just another way to identify them. So that is the gradebook. Next, we'll take a look at the ebook, and this is the student edition built into the platform. So, like Teacher's Edition, navigating here, you can use the table of contents to hop around the different modules. You do have these arrows down here at the bottom. These will jump you from section to section. So if I'm ready to move on past this intro page from Module 8, I can just go ahead and click to the next section. Now, just like in your teacher's edition, your students can leave notes and highlights here in this book, just again by clicking and dragging over a portion they want to highlight. And all those highlights will be stored up in this notebook tab for them. Again, they can access old highlights just by clicking on them, similar to how you're good in your teacher's edition. They have read aloud controls, so it will read the page aloud for them. They also have these reader preferences, so they can adjust the text size from here. They also have the ability to change the font. There are a number of styles available, including this open dyslexic font, which does make these readings more accessible to students with dyslexia. Now, your students will also be able to change the background color and line height. But if they make a bunch of changes like I have here and they're not loving the way it looks, it's very easy just to reset it to publisher format. Now, this version of the ebook here, this is built into the Achieve platform. However, we do also provide them access to the ebook on Vital Sources bookshelf. And this is how you access your teacher's edition of the book. As you'll see, it looks very similar when I open this up. But the main reasons we do offer it on Vital Sources bookshelf One being that you do have access to the public highlighters from here. So this is something your students can do. Just to retrace, I'm coming up to my name up here in the top right, going to read ebook on Vital Sources bookshelf, and this is what it opens up. Now from here, this is how your students can set their own public highlighters. So that way they can share their notes and highlights with each other and with you as the instructor too. Now, the other main reason we do give them access on Vital Sources bookshelf is this version of the ebook can be downloaded. So if you click on download app, it will provide you with instructions here on how to download the Macmillan ebook app. So you can download it on Mac, Windows, Chromebook, as well as mobile devices. But this will also download the ebook for your students. So if they ever are traveling or don't have the best internet connections, they'll still be able to access their book. So yeah, that is the ebook. Next page is for reports. Now, on this page, you'll notice there are two tabs. The first being Insights. So Insights are a unique feature of Achieve, but essentially they're just another way for you to monitor your students' performance and activity throughout the course. You can add insights to your course. There are 6 of them in total. You can add as many as you would like. But once you come back out here, again, just more ways to keep track of your students' performance. For example, this one is for top assignments to review. You can select the date range, let's say within all time for the duration of the course, and you just run that report. It'll show you which assignments they struggled with the most, so we probably should go back and review with that with them. There's even one here for student logins. So if you're curious to see, who hasn't been logging in with the last month, you can run that and it will tell you how many students have not logged on and how many have. So again, just additional ways for you to keep track of them. You will also have insights here for the goal setting and reflection surveys. Now, this will allow you to see what goals students are setting for themselves, how much time they're planning to spend outside of class studying, any concerns they might have, what they're hoping to get out of the class. So you can come see, what students are saying, what goals they're setting and their thoughts on how they're going to achieve those goals. And the same idea for the checkpoint surveys. It'll show you all their responses here. So you can see what goals students set for themselves and which students might be struggling to reach those. You'll then have a standard reports page here where we'll break your class down by performance by unit, by learning objective, and by student. If I wanted to go into a specific unit here, for example, it does break it even further by subunits and assignments. So we can take a look at, module 1 to see how they're doing, or if we want to go and take a look at individual student performance, we can do that as well. Lastly, the People tab. This will simply be a roster of students once they do enter the course. However, something you can do here is create student groups. So if you ever have a group of students that need accommodations, or if you want to split your class up to do group work, this would be a good place to do that. Essentially, you'll just create a new group, give it a name, and then you can start adding your students. So this will make assigning content a lot easier since you won't have to, if these are students that need exceptions, you won't have to apply exceptions for each of one of them. You can just apply it to the group and all 3 of these students would get that extra time. Lastly, up towards the top here, we do have this option for my course, or back to my course. I do want to show a student preview, just so you have an idea of what Achieve looks like through their eyes. They essentially only have access to my course, the gradebook, and the ebook. And if we go to the assignments view, it's very clear here what content they have to complete. Well, that about does all I have to share. That about does it with all I have to share with you guys today. I do appreciate your time, and I hope you and your students enjoy using Achieve.